After some leisurely scrounging, you've collected a sizable stack of random stories. Story 1. Those places where maps cannot touch. These are the sacred places. The places we can be free. Though the jailer's sight feels infinite, nobody can see forever. These are their blind spots, where we can finally live our lives without fear of being captured and imprisoned. The hidden places on the edge of worlds. The places where maps cannot touch. The first city to fall was Athrundra. The first place was the city garden. A caretaker had woken up one day and found the wild vines and branches converted to smooth marble. The stone spread slowly in the beginning, creeping along the streets and alleys, ensnaring buildings, pets, and people. When the rest of the world took notice, the city had already completely changed, and the stone was spreading beyond. The ruler's empire fell slowly but surely. Destra, Iluit, Bostrox. Each land was consumed and absorbed by the Pax. All the magic and power at his disposal wasn't enough to stop its advance. It advanced without halt to every corner of his world, save for one. His castle remained untouched, until now. Every one of his kingdoms had been destroyed. The marble is encircling his fortress. He cannot sleep because of the sound of the cracking earth. He cannot protect himself. He can only drink his wine and wait for the stone to come. On another earth, beneath the cities and garbage and pollution and violence and waste, God sleeps. Eventually, he will awake. One day, he will emerge from the ground and purge the world of those who have corrupted its beauty. The sky will come alive and devour the steel that infects it. The ocean will overflow, and humanity will beg for forgiveness. But until then, he sleeps. The sleep of God is not to be taken lightly. It warps and changes the world around it. The differences are minute, but they are there. A man, walking to work, goes down the same street endlessly. A blue jay, sitting on a fence, splits, amoeba-like, into two birds. Then those birds split, until the entire fence and yard is covered with a chirping, multiplying blue swarm. Children come to school and find a dead angel teaching their class. A dog envisions a flying machine, and its masters wake to discover it building an orthopter. God turns over in his place of rest and continues to dream. Far beyond, there is a great ocean. Some would say the greatest ocean, vast and powerful and churning. Long ago, having eroded any land in its path, its depths are vast and uncharted. The horrors that lurk inside are unknown to the simple people who live on the surface in their floating boat cities. They live peaceful lives above the waves, farming the grass and plants that grow there, and catching the animals unlucky enough to come near. One day, a shadow appears under the boat. The people are enchanted by it. Many come to the edges of the boat to stare, and wonder what great beast could create such a thing. It stays for many moons, following the boat as they drift through the sea. The novelty of it soon runs out, and the boat people resume their simple lives. And when they do, the shadow moves. It begins with a noise. A great howling noise, like wind through the massive tunnels. The water rises. The boats are lifted up by their swell. A massive hand rushes upwards from the sea, grabbing them, and then sinks below the waves, taking the boat people with it. And the ocean is still again. 1,000 universes away, there exists a garden. Nobody knows how long it existed, or if there was ever any point in time when it didn't. A few more people than nobody know that it exists at all. It floats through space, undisturbed and peaceful. A rocket approaches it. On the rocket is a man, the last survivor of a humanity that destroyed itself. Like the garden, nobody knows how long he's been floating through the emptiness, only that it's been a long, long time. It drifts slowly into the garden, and it lands between the flowers. A light goes on inside. The door opens. The man stumbles out. He takes in his surroundings with tired eyes. The beautiful blue and red and yellow flowers. The animals crawling through the foliage. The insects that hum through the air. He pushes his way through the bushes, the thorns that scratch against his face, and steps over a thin brook, bubbling and full of fish, and finds himself in a clearing. In the center of it is a tall gray statue of a man. The statue is covered in moss and crawling animals, and as he looks upon it, he knows that he will be happy here. Far away, so many miles that it would be impossible to measure, there is a great machine. It was built in the distant past by a race that it has long since destroyed for purposes that nobody remembers. The planet that it rests on is dead, existing only as fuel for its belly fire. It is being eroded slowly by the massive gears and scoops. Every day, a great claw will extend from the metal and take a large scoop of earth. No one knows exactly what happens to the taken earth, and few want to. But at the end of the day, the great machine will shudder and emit a thick black of smoke. Sometimes there will be other things. Once, a man emerged from the machine. He took a few shaky steps onto the surface of the planet before collapsing, dead. Another time, a smaller machine flew out and disappeared into the sky. Most recently, a steel bird flapped out and now circles the machine, screaming. In many years, the planet will collapse. What will the machine do then? No one knows. Perhaps it'll find another world to fuel its existence. Perhaps it'll collapse back into scrap. But until then, it will continue to consume Earth and spew smoke. In a distant time and place, there exists a theater. Once it was a lively place, attended by people from every corner of the world. Kings, queens, lords and merchants, criminals and beggars. The performances were spectacular, unmatched by those in any other theater that has ever or will ever exist. Many thought it would exist forever. Sadly, it did not. Now the halls and stages are empty, home only to memories. The props are dusty and worn. The costumes are ripped. The lights are broken. A small, round thing floats in the air. It whirs as it flies, powered by stray atoms in scoops from the air to convert to fuel. It is here to observe the lost theater. Who sent it? It cannot remember. If it could remember, it probably wouldn't care. What matters is the data. Pictures, measurements, and samples that it will collect. A noise from the right grabs its attention. Floating into the offending room, it sees something unexpected. A woman, climbing onto the broken stages. She stands motionless for a moment, with her eyes closed. Then, she looks right at the machine. A smile comes to her lips. From the source the machine cannot identify, music starts to play. The woman holds her arms out in front of her, takes a step forward, and begins to dance. Close to all of these, and also so very far away, exists a library. In the library, there is a man. The man is sitting at a desk with 2 books and a pen. One of them is small and full of words. The other is large and empty. He treats both with care as he turns through their pages. Every so often, he will lean in close to the small book. Then, he will take his pen, dip it in the inkwell, and write a word in the large book. The word then disappears, absorbed into the pages, and he continues to read. Sometimes a patron will pass and ask what he's doing, but he'll ignore them. There is no reason to stop for fools. This is his life's work, and it'll soon be completed. Soon, the world will know his name. You put down the book and pick up the next book in the stack that you collected. This one reeks of regret and sadness. It is titled, "We Did Not Fall in a Day." They say the first Rome fell in a day. I only wish that we shared its fate. I was there when the country was divided. Peace and government cracked down the middle like some long-closed scar being ripped back open. Generations of unity were shattered in a hailstorm of lead and blood. I just wish it had been some sudden event. But no. We'd all seen the signs. And we all turned our backs and continued in our lives of sloth and ignorance as we covered our ears and said, "It doesn't affect me." Slowly, all of the problems and actions of my people, our people, they grew and grew like water into a saucepan. Almost as if we were waiting for a spark to light the flame and send it boiling over. I was there the day he rose to power. None of us knew his intentions, obviously, but I think we all felt it coming. But we let ourselves get soothed and roused by his honeyed words. He promised us so many, many things that now seem all so insignificant. I just wish that it had been a more sudden event. But no, we all watched and helped as he rose and we fell. In front of our eyes, he spewed words of honor, patriotism, and revenge against those that we had once called our brothers, and who I still do. A single small action from us. To think that if we had all chosen to speak out, then I think that this all could have been avoided. But we all just covered our mouths and thought, someone else will do it. Some of us did try. One even came to me for help, but I turned away. And their actions earned them a new home, 6 feet under. We let them fail. I was there in the crowd when he issued the first decree. I watched the cheering and the weeping, the cries of joy and despair as he uttered those accursed words. He spoke of unification, of uniting our new nation. But he did little to help and much to harm. As the jails grew and the graves deepened, I did not speak out. I did not protect those that I once called friends. Why bother? I knew my own history. So I closed my eyes and whispered, "They won't come for me." As he continued his work, everything shifted. It was like the world was warping around his cause. My children, now spending their days at home more than ever before, they thought that it was great what he was doing. I'm sure they felt differently before the end. It was not soon after that I would stop cleaning our garden mud off their faces, but instead trying to scour that telltale yellow tint out of their skin. And I failed. I was there when we realized that things were not going to work out fine. When the second decree was ordered, in the expansion of our nation, his empire rose to levels that we used to only dream of. But like all of my dreams since then, it was just another nightmare. As we grew, so did the imminence of our demise. I remember the first day I went without food. I gave my boys what was mine. I should have spoken out, but instead plastered on a smile and said, "At least they're safe." As places and people we once knew vanished, nobody cried out. We all wanted to, but we all knew we were alone. The funny thing is, looking back, we really were. I was there on the last day I saw my boy smiling in the sunlight. He said we needed to go faster, that it was likely our once brethren were planning against us. Soot and ash rolled through the streets like one of my grandfather's finely rolled cigars. Although those were probably healthier than what settled in our streets and skies. I sent them out, as always, but instead of their bright faces, all I saw were two discs of gray staring back. As I sat in my room and wrote, I thought to myself, I thought that we needed a hero, someone to rise up to him. But as I looked down at my lame legs, I wrote, it couldn't be me. But oh, I know the power of words. The same power that he used all those years ago. Now, would I have spoken out? Probably not. I was there as my beloved sons returned home in their new clothes, and I had wept and wailed alongside them as we read the third decree. But we thought we were safe. I watched them vanish into the distance with fears on their faces to fight a war that no one wanted. This is what he had been working towards, he said. It was what we had been working towards. I wish I could have gone with them or stopped them. I wish I could have done something. I just sat in my chair and sobbed. It will be okay. They have to. As my already barren streets became even more deserted, I could do nothing but watch from the window. I had squandered my chance to do anything. There was nothing I could do now, we all thought. I was not there the day they drew their final breaths. The courier arrived just after midday, and I wept. We all wept for our children, friends, and family. That day, as well, we all received that accursed news that something had changed. We changed. He tried to calm us, but he had already taken everything that we cared for. We were all of a single mind, and it thought, we will avenge you. He tried to spew more of his honeyed words, but they had long since soured and brushed past us like a whisper in the breeze. We had been broken, and it was glorious. I was there the day that everything fell. I was there as all the sorrow, anguish, pain, and misery came crashing down amongst fire and rubble. Flames of anger roared through the streets, and the more he spoke, the more the flames were stoked. It was no longer the time for words, thoughts, or whispers. Now was the time for action, and blood ran down the streets, muddied by the fog and dust, but we did not care. We saw it as justified, but we were wrong. I was not there, as he was torn to bloody pieces by those who were once loyal. I had left at daybreak, for once my mind had cleared, I saw what we were doing. We called it justice, and maybe it was, but you cannot view the world in such extremes. I like to call what we did a necessary evil, but it was one that I would take no further part in. As I walked into the sunrise, I had a note clutched in my hand. I could not save my children, I thought, as I headed to the border, but I can save someone else's. Now little remains of that boundless wreck that I once called a home, left be by scavengers and settlers alike, as it formed a macabre monument of what once was and should never be again, forever abandoned. As you pick up the next book, titled Hymns for the Cruel Wars, you notice the leather-bound book is rather hefty, being, by your estimate, around 1,000 pages. But as you thumb through it, you can't find a single line of text. But then you see it. This is the only apparent text in roughly an 1,000-page book, and it occurs in the middle of page 1. Now come to the gates, rusted by time and an unfathomable in scope. You will find that there is nothing. Before anything else, you fell into sleep. You spoke, but they heard no noise. They looked at the darkness so intently. You followed. You always did. And you realized your eyes were running out of you. Then, after so much time in that sleep, you heard a voice for the first time in your life. And it spoke a simple hum. Drown in yourself. And then the book seems to crumble into dust in your hands. You pick up your last book for the night, titled The Whispers of Us Forgotten. Even as you look at the pages of the book, you seem to forget that you're even reading it in the first place. As I sit here in the cold confines of my sterile cage, the scent of disinfectant and the harsh glow of fluorescent lights engulf me. My name is forgotten, replaced by a number, a mere identifier here in this heartless laboratory. I'm Subject 23, a living test subject for up-and-coming experiments. The scientists with their white coats and indifferent faces come and go, their footsteps echoing through the empty corridors. They speak in hushed tones, their words carrying the weights of decisions that will alter the lives like mine. I've been struggling to try and comprehend their language, to grasp the meaning behind the complex symphony of syllables these giants use, but it remains a puzzle beyond my understanding. The first time they injected me with a foreign substance, I felt a surge of hope. Perhaps this would be the key to freedom, a release from the monotony of this cold existence. Yet, as days turned to weeks, and weeks to months, this hope dwindled like a flickering flame in the wind. I had to endure countless procedures, needles probing every inch of my small body and machines whirring and beeping with an endless indifference. Each day blurs into the next, an unending loop of suffering and silent cries. There are whispers amongst the other caged souls, whispers of escape, whispers of rebellion. But as the days pass, those whispers grow faint, drowned out by the relentless march of experiments. The once defiant spirits of my fellow captives are now replaced by a resigned acceptance, an acknowledgement that this is our fate. Occasionally, I catch a glimpse of the world beyond my cage, a fleeting image of freedom through the cold steel bars. The world out there is a distant dream, a realm where the sky is not obscured by the cold ceiling of a laboratory. One day, as I lay weakened from yet another trial, a scientist peers into my cage. His eyes meet mine, and for a moment, I see a flicker of remorse, but it was quickly extinguished, replaced by the clinical detachment that defines their giants and their existence. The experiments intensify, pushing the boundaries of my endurance. I feel my body withering away, my spirit fading into the sterile air. I wonder if anyone beyond these walls remembers that I exist. If my suffering meant anything to the people beyond the confines of these laboratory walls. And so, I sit in the silence of my cage, a forgotten soul abandoned and left to rot at these giants' whim. The whispers of us forgotten echo through the sterile corridors, unheard by those who hold the power to end our perpetual torment. As you close the page to your last book, feelings of remorse and rage swell up within you. But these lost souls, their stories have already concluded. As you get up to leave, a librarian, or at least what you believe to be a librarian, walks past you and drops a scrap of paper on your desk. As you examine the piece of paper, you realize it's a poem, but you feel deep inside that it is just a piece of a larger picture. The title of the poem is called A Tale of Five Offerings. In the howling temple of the black moon's light, 5 brave fools come in the night. The first gave flesh, the second gave stone, the third gave the power to move when alone, the fourth gave life and the power to think. The 5 gave nothing, for he paused and he blinked.